That was a Friday night, and I was watching the weather from my house, just like probably all of the rest of you were, and I could tell from the weatherman that the tornado was exactly right on top of our facility. They were saying that it was at Highway 66 and Banner Road, and that's exactly where we're located at. So I knew that the tornado had come right by our building. I was, of course, very anxious about that because we have 9 kids. We had 9 kids that night in the shelter. We also had, staff here with them, and so I was really anxious about their well-being and their safety. And as soon as I could get out here, I drove out in my car, and when I tried to get out here, there was so much water everywhere, I could not actually drive into our driveway. So I had to park about a quarter of a mile over and then actually walk in, and I walked along beside the highway, and then when I got to our driveway, it was all covered in water, and there was water all in this part of our parking lot, and you could not get a vehicle in. But as soon as I got here, I could see the kids and the staff outside in the parking lot, and the staff had them out playing football, trying to keep them distracted a little bit, and I was so glad to see them. When I got out here, it was probably about 8 p.m. and it was starting to get dark, and there was, of course, no electricity. And the kids were glad to see somebody had come out to check on them, and they were excited to tell me about what had happened and about how loud it was, and really some of them had gotten very scared. But the great thing is that we have a super fantastic safe room, and they were in that. They had been covered up with blankets, and the staff were kind of covering them, making sure that they were safe. And of course, I was just so happy that they were all just fine when I got here. So the shelter building where the kids were actually didn't take near the amount of damage that the rest of our facility took. And so when I got over here to this building, the text I had gotten basically said that this building was just destroyed. So I was really anxious on what this building was going to look like. And so actually, it is pretty gutted, but it is still here standing. So when I got here, this was all water, and water was coming in because basically it peeled off the top of our roof. And then of course the building just started filling up with water everywhere. And also all over the floor was leaves and grass, because we found out later that the tornado actually sucked open all of the exterior doors. Since our electricity was off, they were not locked by our electronic locks anymore, and so the wind literally just sucked all of the exterior doors open, and so all of that high wind and tornado was actually, inside our building. This can kind of give you an idea of how high that the water went up, because they literally had to cut all of the walls out on the lower level because the water had risen so high, and so that's of course why all of the flooring has now had to be pulled out, because that's going to have to all be replaced. Well, I was sure glad that the building was still standing, but I wasn't really prepared for all the water that was going to be in here and all the debris. And in fact, there was debris all over the yard. We've since then obviously got all the debris cleaned up outside, but I wasn't prepared for there to be grass and leaves all inside of our building. It's going to be a while before we know the full extent of all of the damage that we've taken, because we're having to do a lot of getting estimates and negotiating with insurance and all that. But the very first estimate that the insurance guy has given me is $800,000 in damages. It's pretty obvious we've got a lot of work to get everything back together and to get everything back operational. And what we know is that we've got friends like you guys that we can count on to help us get back to where we were before all of this happens. So however you could help us, we would really appreciate it.